The plains stretched empty and merciless, a pale ocean of dust and frost beneath a sky that did not care. Wind moved across the land like a whisper of judgment, dragging dead grass along the ground and rattling the loose boards of forgotten fence posts. This was frontier land, where mercy was scarce and survival was earned inch by inch. She stood alone at the edge of a shallow grave. Her name was Eleanor Graves, and 3 days ago she had been a bride. Now she was nothing but a woman wrapped in a black shawl, her boots soaked with melting snow, her hands cracked and bleeding as she gripped a shovel worn thin by grief. The body at her feet was small, too small. The earth was frozen hard, stubborn as fate itself. Each strike of the shovel rang out like a gunshot in the silence. Metal against ice, ice against despair. Eleanor's breath came out in white clouds, each one trembling, as if her lungs themselves were unsure whether to continue. 3 days, that was how long she had waited. Not here, but in the town of Red Hollow. She had stood at the altar of St. Mercy, chapel while the sun climbed the stained-glass windows. She had listened to murmurs turn into coughs. She had watched pity replace expectation on every face, and the groom never came. By sundown, the whispers had sharpened. By midnight, the truth arrived like a knife. Caleb Wright, rancher, gambler, and the man who had sworn to marry her, had ridden out with another woman, taken her west, left behind debts, enemies, and Eleanor. But worse than the betrayal was what followed. The child fell ill the very same night. 3 days later, Eleanor buried her alone. The shovel struck something solid, stone. She dropped to her knees, fingers numb, brushing away dirt with desperate care. The rock was smooth, grey, ordinary. She placed it at the head of the grave because there was nothing else. No cross, no name carved, just memory. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though she did not know to whom. Behind her, somewhere far across the plains, hooves thundered. Eleanor froze. Out here, riders meant one of 3 things: cowboys, lawmen, or trouble. She reached slowly into her coat, fingers curling around the grip of a small revolver. She did not turn around, not yet. The hooves stopped. Silence returned, but it was heavier now watching her. A man's voice finally cut through the cold. "You shouldn't be alone out here." She turned. The rider sat tall in the saddle, dust-covered and broad-shouldered. His hat pulled low against the sun. A ranch brand marked his horse, a broken circle. Eleanor recognized it. Jonah Hale. He owned the largest spread south of Red Hollow. A man known for fairness and violence when fairness failed. "I didn't ask for company," Eleanor said. Jonah dismounted slowly, careful like a man, approaching a wounded animal. "Storm's coming," he said, "and men worse than storms are moving through these lands." She laughed once. It was sharp and empty. "Let them come." Jonah's eyes dropped to the grave. His jaw tightened. "I heard about the wedding." Eleanor's grip tightened on the shovel. "Then you heard wrong," she said. "There was no wedding. Just waiting." Jonah nodded. He understood waiting. The frontier was built on it, waiting for rain, waiting for justice, waiting for men who never returned. "I can escort you back," he offered. She shook her head. "I'll walk." Jonah hesitated, then mounted again. "I'll ride slow." They moved together across the plains, one on horseback, one on foot, 2 souls carrying different weights, neither lighter than the other. They never saw the eyes watching from the ridge, nor the rifle barrel glinting briefly in the sun. Caleb Wright had enemies, and Eleanor, abandoned and grieving, had inherited them all. Far to the west, smoke rose from a camp hidden among the rocks. Apache scouts watched the land the way hawks watched mice, and among them was a girl, no older than 16, who saw Eleanor long before Eleanor ever knew she existed. A girl who would soon ask a question that would set the frontier ablaze. The storm came at dawn. It did not announce itself with thunder. It arrived the way bad news always did on the frontier, quiet, sudden, and impossible to outrun. Low clouds rolled over the plains like bruises spreading across the sky, and the wind carried the sharp smell of snow mixed with dust. Horses grew restless. Men grew cautious. Eleanor felt it in her bones before she ever saw the clouds. She and Jonah, Hale reached the edge of Red Hollow, just as the first flakes began to fall, thin and dry, stinging the skin like grit. The town looked smaller than she remembered, meaner, as if it had shrunk in judgment. Jonah dismounted outside the livery. "You can stay at my ranch," he said, voice low. "It's safer than town right now." Eleanor shook her head. "This town owes me nothing, and I owe it less." She turned away before he could argue. Inside Red Hollow, eyes followed her like gun barrels. The rejected bride, the woman whose groom ran, the one who buried a child without a stone. Men spat, women whispered. Doors closed a little too quickly. Eleanor walked straight to the boarding house, her back rigid, her face unreadable. Waiting had taught her one thing: never let them see you bend. What she did not know was that waiting had ended. By noon, Caleb Wright's name was spoken aloud again. A rider came in hard from the west, his horse lathered and bleeding at the flanks. He shouted before he even dismounted. "Wright's back." The name rippled through the town like fire through dry grass. "He's riding with hired guns. 2 of them, maybe 3. They say he's looking for a woman." Eleanor heard it all from the top of the boarding house stairs. She did not move. She did not hide. If Caleb Wright was coming, she would not run. Not anymore. By dusk, the storm thickened. Snow fell heavier now, clinging to coats and lashes, muting sound. Red Hollow looked like a ghost town buried alive. Lamps glowed weakly behind frosted glass. That was when Jonah Hale rode back into town. He found Eleanor standing alone outside the chapel. "You should be somewhere safe," he said. She met his eyes. "So should you." Jonah's jaw tightened. "Caleb's asking questions." "Let him. He's not alone." "Neither am I." She gestured vaguely to the town, to the land, to something inside herself that had hardened beyond fear. Jonah studied her a long moment. Then he said, "Come with me, just for tonight." Before she could answer, a new sound cut through the storm. Not hooves, footsteps, soft, barely there. Jonah's hand dropped to his gun. Out of the white curtain of falling snow stepped a figure no one expected. A girl. She was wrapped in a worn blanket, her dark hair braided tight against the cold. Her boots were moccasins, silent on the frozen ground. Her eyes were sharp, steady and far older than her face. "Apache." Every muscle in Jonah's body went rigid. The girl stopped several paces away. She did not reach for a weapon. She did not bow her head. She looked directly at Eleanor. "You waited," the girl said, her English careful but clear. 3 days. Eleanor's breath caught. "How do you—" "We watch," the girl said simply. Jonah stepped forward. "You shouldn't be here." The girl's eyes flicked to him, unimpressed. Neither should he. "Who?" Eleanor asked. "Caleb Wright," the girl replied. "He brings death. Not only to you." Silence stretched between them, thick and dangerous. "What do you want?" Jonah demanded. The girl ignored him again. She took 1 step closer to Eleanor, snow crunching softly beneath her feet. "My name is Nita," she said. "My people know what it is to lose, to wait, to be taken and left." Eleanor felt something shift, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel since the grave.
"Why are you here?"
Eleanor asked. Nita's gaze did not waver. "Because the land has chosen," she said, "and because waiting ends tonight." She hesitated just for a breath. Then she asked the question that cracked the air open like a rifle shot. "Do you want to marry?" Jonah stared at her, stunned. Eleanor felt the world tilt. "Marry? Who?" Eleanor whispered. Nita's expression was solemn, certain. "Protection," she said. "Alliance, survival. You think marriage is a shield?" Jonah snapped. Nita turned to him fully now. Her voice hardened. "Out here it is." Snow swirled around them, erasing edges, erasing certainty. From the far end of town, a shadow moved. Then another. Caleb Wright had arrived, and this time he was not leaving without something or someone. Eleanor looked from the girl to Jonah, then toward the darkness, where her past was riding straight toward her. For the first time in 3 days, she did not feel alone. She took a slow breath. "I don't know the rules," Eleanor said quietly. Nita nodded. "Neither do we. That is how new paths begin. A gun cocked somewhere in the dark." Jonah swore under his breath, and Eleanor realized the question was never really about marriage. It was about choosing to live.